In 1997, the Daily Mail did something legally unthinkable. They put the photos of 5 men on their front page with the headline "Murderers" and challenged them to sue because the police had failed to convict them for years.
Wait, a major newspaper just flat out accused 5 people of murder? That sounds like a libel lawsuit waiting to happen. Did the suspects sue?
They didn't, because those 5 men knew exactly what they'd done on a street corner in Eltham 4 years earlier. Today we're talking about the murder of Stephen Lawrence, a case that didn't just haunt London, it dismantled the reputation of the British police and actually changed the 800-year-old law of double jeopardy. It's April 22nd, 1993. Stephen Lawrence is an 18-year-old student with a bright future ahead of him. He wants to be an architect. He's standing at a bus stop in southeast London with his friend Duane Brooks when a gang of white youths approaches them.
Was this a robbery gone wrong or something?
No, it was pure, unprovoked hate. One of the attackers shouts a racial slur and then the group just swarms Stephen. He's stabbed twice, deep wounds that sever major arteries, but through sheer adrenaline, he manages to run over 100 yards before collapsing.
And what about his friend Duane? Did he see who did it?
He did, and he was frantically trying to get help, but this is where the story turns from a local tragedy into a national scandal. When the police arrived, they didn't treat Duane like a traumatized witness, they treated him like a suspect. They didn't even give Stephen first aid as he lay dying on the pavement.
So from minute one, the police were already looking at the situation through a distorted lens. Was that just one bad officer, or was it the whole department?
That's the question that would eventually break the Metropolitan Police. Within days, local residents gave the police the names of the 5 main suspects, a local gang known for racist violence. But the police moved so slowly that the suspects had time to hide evidence and get their stories straight. For years, Stephen's parents, Doreen and Neville Lawrence, watched as the system failed them. The Crown Prosecution Service dropped the charges in 1993, saying there wasn't enough evidence. So the Lawrences did something incredibly rare. They launched a private prosecution against the suspects themselves.
I didn't even know you could do that. Can you just hire your own lawyers to play the role of the state?
You can, but it's expensive and risky. It went to court in 1996, but it collapsed because the judge ruled Duane Brooks's identification evidence was inadmissible. Because those men were acquitted, the law at the time, called double jeopardy, meant they could never be tried for that murder again.
So they were basically untouchable? That explains why they were so smug when they were called to testify at the 1997 inquest.
Exactly. They refused to answer questions, literally swaggering in front of the cameras. That's what triggered that "murderers" headline we talked about. The public outrage grew so loud that the government finally ordered a public inquiry led by Sir William Macpherson.
And this is where that term institutional racism comes from, right?
Yes, Macpherson's 1999 report was a bombshell. He didn't just say a few cops were racist, he said the entire Metropolitan Police Service was institutionally racist. He defined it as a collective failure to provide a professional service to people because of their color or culture.
That's a huge admission for the government to make. But did it actually lead to any arrests? Or was it just a report that sat on a shelf?
It led to something even bigger, a change in the law. Macpherson recommended that the double jeopardy rule should be scrapped for murder. By 2005, the law changed so that if new and compelling evidence appeared, an acquitted person could be tried again.
Okay, so the door's back open. Did the new evidence actually exist? Or were they starting from zero?
They used technology that didn't exist in 1993. In 2006, forensics experts found a microscopic blood stain on Gary Dobson's jacket, only 0.5 millimeters wide, that matched Stephen's DNA. They also found a single 2 millimeter strand of Stephen's hair on David Norris's jeans.
It's wild that it took nearly 20 years for a speck of blood and a hair to do what a whole police force couldn't.
In 2012, Gary Dobson and David Norris were finally found guilty of murder. The judge called it a terrible and evil crime. It was a partial victory, but remember, there were 5 or 6 attackers that night.
So only 2 out of the 5 actually went to prison for it? What happened to the others?
The investigation into the others was moved to an inactive phase in 2020. Even more disturbing, it later came out that undercover police had actually been used to spy on and smear the Lawrence family during their campaign, trying to find dirt to discredit them.
That is incredibly dark. Instead of finding the killers, they were trying to ruin the victim's parents? That's not just incompetence, that's malice.
It's why the legacy of this case is so complicated. On one hand, you have Stephen Lawrence Day every April 22nd and a more diverse police force. On the other hand, recent reviews suggest many of the institutional failings McPherson pointed out 25 years ago still exist today.
It sounds like Stephen's parents became the conscience of a whole country. Doreen Lawrence is a baroness now, right?
She is. She used her grief as a fuel to rewrite British law. She and Neville showed that a family's persistence can eventually move a mountain, even if the mountain doesn't want to move.
This story is heavy. But what's the one thing we should remember about Stephen Lawrence's legacy?
Remember that Stephen's case proved justice isn't just about catching a criminal. It's about demanding that the system meant to protect us actually works for everyone, regardless of their race.
That's Wikipedia. Every story on demand. Search your next topic at wikipedia.ai.